Welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. You guys, my co-host today is, in their way, a Feeling Seen MVP. The star of this director's movie, Crush, Auli'i Cravalho, is one of our most listened to episodes of all time. I loved that movie. I love their new movie, You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. Sammi Cohen has also directed scads of college humor videos, so you, more than likely, especially if like you're a millennial coming up on the internet at a certain time, could be very familiar with a separate body of work that they produced. Sammi Cohen, welcome to the show. What else do the people need to know about you before we get started, besides comedy luminary Sammi Cohen?
Wow, what an introduction. This is just delightful in every way already.
Great.
I think you kind of nailed it. I love that Auli'i is one of the most listened to episodes. I'm obviously a huge fan of hers, and that movie is so near and dear to my heart.
She's a star.
Yes.
Star. That movie
100%.
is a joy. That was at the end of, I thought it was last year, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. At the end of the year, our metrics came in, and that was via Spotify, that was our most listened to episode on the platform.
That makes me so happy. That, the making of Crush, the writers, myself, we made that movie, and it was so important to us because we did not have a movie like that growing up, and we went, we want queer kids to feel seen. And as a filmmaker, that is a big part of why I'm doing what I do. I want to, movies saved me as a child, and I think continue to make me feel safe in who I am and who I want to be. Crush was such a important part of my work as a filmmaker. I think my work as a human being. What a joy to hear that. It makes me want to cry, happy tears.
What you really have a way with, and this is such a crucial part of the coming of age movie, of the teen love story movie, in whatever fashion that love story takes. The supporting parents roles, Megan Mullally in Crush, and then Adam Sandler and Idina Menzel in this, and also the supporting cast of adults. You crush it with a supporting cast of adults around your wonderfully charismatic young. Now, are you consciously aware that that's such a secret sauce of this kind of movie? Or you're like, well, of course I would just pay as much attention to this as I would pay to anything else. Tell me about the secret to unlocking the grown supporting cast in a youth coming-of-age film.
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit
we all had our lives changed by Stanley Tucci and Patricia Clarkson in Easy A. We all know how good it can be.
Yes. I love that movie, and I will say the parents are maybe my favorite part of that movie because it felt like something I hadn't seen. And I know that's a really weirdly maybe controversial thing to say.
No, I've had that same conversation with so many people. They're like, are they my favorite part amidst a movie with so many other amidst a movie where Amanda Bynes is giving the performance of her career? I mean, talk about supporting roles.
Yes. I mean, truly, but they stand out, and they're so memorable because it just feels like even if you don't have, that kind of supportive parental structure, it just feels aspirational. It's funny, coming of age movies, feel good movies, they tend to be these sort of slightly aspirational, worlds or, things that these characters are pursuing. But I think there's something about aspirational parenting and having a support system and sometimes it feels utopic, with Crush, that's a utopic version of high school.
Right.
But I think the Easy A of it all, even in Booksmart, they're goofy, but Easy A nailed it. It just was it was so nonchalant. It was so kind of casual, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
something that's so refreshing. And that was I remember going, that's the first time I feel like I've ever seen that. This is amazing. So that's my favorite part of that movie. I think it's a little bit of a no-brainer for me. Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky to have, I grew up with my mom and I have two younger sisters, but I had a parent, an Easy A parent. And so it's really just organic and a part. I just go, I had a cool Jewish mom who, it took me a long time to come out, but my mom like didn't even scoff, went, yeah, I figured. Like, it was so not a big deal. It was almost offensive in the other way, where I was wait, give me a little bit of attention. So I kind of come, from that world, and I'm lucky to have that, real life experience to draw from. But I think it's important, in coming of age movies, are not just about being a teenager. Like, that is, for instance, Stacy and Bat Mitzvah. It's a coming-of-age movie about a 13-year-old kid who's grappling with, who do I want to be in the world, and who am I? It's also a coming-of-age film for parents. And I think,
this, I was watching, I was like, is this one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies? I loved him in this.
Well, and the beauty of this is, he is such a... there's a lot of him in the movie, Adam Sandler as a dad, he is so supportive. He's so goofy and kind, and he is the Jewish dad we all want and love. And so much of that really just is kind of embedded within the DNA of Danny Friedman, his character, and the film as a whole. But yeah, I think it is part of the secret sauce, family structure. This is very Jewish, but it's we're all about family, community, and but I think parents are often overlooked. If you look back at John Hughes, who's kind of one of the masters of coming of age, and really there's certainly a
nod to John Hughes in a theater scene in the movie.
Yep, I love that you saw that. I think 16 Candles, as far as the design, not as much. There's some problematic stuff there, but
for sure,
we really I think a lot of our production design was informed by the Hughes era, Ferris Bueller in the kitchen and Stacy's bedroom, 16 Candles. But I think Hughes was very successful, and his movies felt so authentic because he gave teenagers a voice that sounded like teenagers.
Yeah.
And that was what was cool back then in the 80s. I think now it's about really being authentic to teenagers, but also going parents are human beings too. And to give them, it's also a movie where we need to be mindful of how we represent them. And they're not stereotypes, they're not caricatures, they're real people, and they can be great. They can be, the easy A's.
The peas, spell it with the peas. Cinema iconography. And before we get into your character choices, which have such a wonderful synergy with the movies that you've made, I wanted to talk to you about the focus of different category of love story. Whereas in Crush, we have a romantic arc. We have Ali Carvalho and we have Rowan Blanchard. And that is figuring out, do I like this girl? How do I like this girl? Can I do this? And then, but in You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, there's a tertiary, love story involved with a very, perfectly cast, yes, that is the epitome of a high school, middle school boy teen crush. But this is a love story about a friendship. And that's as anybody who's ever listened to this show would know, that is my meat and potatoes right there. And so I wanted to talk to you about putting the focus on both of those things with the equal weight of importance by making them the center of a sort of coming of age, figure yourself out love story format, but with, a friendship at the center and then with a romance at the center. And seeing those two, it really feels as equally valid and significant.
Well, tell me, guide me back if I get off course. But I think what's really exciting about Bat Mitzvah, I think you expect, and we posit this idea at the beginning where Andy Goldfarb, it seems like a very classic thing we've all been through, whether you're attracted to the cool boy, girl, whoever, human. I think feeling lust and love and attraction is such a real heightened state of emotion for a coming of age kid. And love stories we've seen a bunch, but I think what's really fun about Bat Mitzvah is the real love story is the platonic love story. They're little platonic soulmates,
Story of my life personally. So feeling seen by such films as yours.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I my friends helped me figure out who I was. And they were very much, I think relationships, we put a lot of weight on the romantic relationships on screen. I think that is this thing that we've been told, that is the one thing that matters. But when you look at the reality of our lives, or at least in my life, I go like, I've had a lot of romantic relationships, but the people who have been with me through all of them are my friends. And there is something so valid and so, I think like I'm like, what I want to see more of is celebrating these love stories that can be platonic. In Crush, obviously, it is like through and through, like it is more of a traditional love story.
And it's great.
But, and it's great, and very lesbian. It's grounded in friendship. There you go.
We love that. The unifying queer experience.
Of course. If you've been there, you know it. You know it. But I think like with Bat Mitzvah, there is such like a beautiful. It's a mirror for people to go like, like I can be like in love with my best friend in a completely platonic way. And those are the people that, are with you and help you kind of figure out who you are. And, it's like Stacy and Lydia, I think like they are the kind of friends who make you feel nostalgic for your own. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
very much.
Feel like this. Yeah. And it encapsulates that first kind of love that we do experience. The first kind of love you experience is, I don't believe it's really your first crush. I think it's your first best friend. And so
I would agree.
Like, we need to see more of that. Yeah.
Well, okay. And so to bring that over into the characters that you've brought, there's two that feel like sort of like two sides of the same coin, and then there's one that's like a little bit of spice in the mix. And so we have one that has been one of our very first episodes. This character came into play, Veda Sultanfuss, from My Girl, millennial icon, Veda Sultanfuss. Lore and Mikhail from like the, the sort of dual identity of the very young protagonist of Celine Sciamma's Tomboy. And then we have shades from, we have Guy Patterson from That Thing You Do, which is the wonderful spice in the mix. So I guess I get, my question would be, were you the cool drummer in the band? I guess I'll start with Guy, really. And where did Guy come into your story?
What can I help you with today, gentlemen?
We have a big proposition for you, Guy. You still playing percussion?
I told you we was, didn't I?
Yeah. Every day.
We need you, Sketch.
How about sitting in for Chad just for tonight?
Why?
Asshole. Just broke his arm.
I love that we're starting here because That Thing You Do is the movie that made me a drummer and a director.
Really?
It's what I give credit for. Yeah. It's a really obscure, niche little movie that changed the course of my life, but that is just my truth, and so I'm here to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
I was in a band post That Thing You Do. I was the drummer. I was in a couple bands growing up, but in college I was in a band 7 Day Weekend.
Hey, you and the Lynnettes, are those prescription or are you just trying to look cool?
Well, I am the drummer.
I don't know if I was the cool drummer, but I definitely took the spirit of Shades into, everything I tried to accomplish. And I think it was funny, even when I sent this over, I went, this feels like a curveball and a funny combination.
Fantastic. But, we are rich tapestries.
But I love, and I think we're multifaceted as human beings, and I think with Guy, what made me feel seen and what excited me about that character, and it was slightly like I think I just wanted to be him.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to be the object of Liv Tyler's affection and be the cool drummer in the biggest band in America?
I think what really stood out to me is, he is in that movie, he is the one doing what he loves just to do what he loves. There's this, when you look at the rest of the band, they have a goal and they want to be the biggest and be the best. And then you have Shades Guy, who's just, working, goes home, and in his own private, space, does what he loves. That breeds success, but it's not the focal point. He's not trying to commercialize himself or chase this thing in a monetary way and assign value in that sense. So I think what I really loved is this feeling of the good guy obviously wins, but I can do what I love, and whether it works out or doesn't, as long as I, bring happiness and spark joy along the way, that's what matters.
Del Paxton, who are you?
I'm Guy Patterson. I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm in a band called The Wonders, and we just got a record. We're out here on the coast, and I play the drums, and I have all your records. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. But at least I did until some of them got swiped when I was stationed in Germany, and you were playing in Germany at the time that I was stationed there. But you know what? I couldn't see you because you were playing in Hamburg and I was stationed in Munich. But I listened to your records, and I think you're great. You are my biggest fan.
Thanks.
It really is like inspirational in that sense, where I didn't feel like, the pressure that we have in society to like make money and be successful. And if you love something, you have to turn, like, the irony is like, I think I took that into filmmaking, and I started making movies, didn't show them, like, for me and only me. And it was just because I loved it. So that's kind of what made me feel excited and seen by him.
Well, and that, like, when I think back about that movie, like, how was it kind of a weirdly impactful movie if you were a kid that, like, especially, like, it's not like a movie for kids necessarily, but, like, I was born in 1995, I'm 38, and I feel like if you're just sort of around that, like, there's a specific age range where if you grew up and that thing you do hit you in adolescence, it was kind of a huge deal. Like, there's something just, like, quietly, like, impactful about that film to, like, a micro generation, it seems. And it's just stayed with me kind of forever. Like, the specific melancholy of that scene near the end where Guy is in the recording studio by himself just playing a drum kit that's in front of him, and he, like, he doesn't want to get caught, and he kind of stops the cymbals from chiming at a certain point.
What do you call that?
I am Spartacus.
You want to lay it down?
No, I was just goofing around.
But then just, like, has a conversation with, somebody about, like, how much he loves what he does, and he loves the drumming and the music. And there's just something about, like, kind of how happy and sad that scene was that has really, like, embedded in me my whole life for some reason.
I mean, that's such a beautiful scene to call out. I probably couldn't say it better myself. I think there's bits and pieces of that throughout, where it's like, the recognition in Guy that, like, I think he feels at times alone, but then he, like, finds his way. I think that's another thing too. Like, he is the kind of lone wolf. Even when he joins the band, he is, like, the one added on. And I think there's, something quite lovely about watching someone who, even, like, in that moment where he ends up alone in a quiet space, he's able to still find joy in, like, the thing he does, and it draws in new people, and it's just, it continues to be hopeful. As soon as it's sad, it's hopeful again. And I desperately needed that as a kid. I still do. It's a lovely message.
Well, I guess something that, like, I'm realizing something that jumps off of that for me that I would like to ask you about is, as a director, do you find that to be, I feel like I hear this from friends of mine who direct, do you find it to be a kind of isolationist job for at least a period of it? I feel like a lot of directors I know just kind of get siloed in the independent, like, development and creative work that they're doing to jump off, to get them to jump off and get it going and in production, get it bought and get it optioned, whatever. Like, is that something where, like, are you kind of alone with the drum kit a lot? Or do you find your experience of being a director, like, in the sort of entirety of the process, would it be more of a communal and shared experience, or is it kind of like you, the lone wolf, on your own?
It does. It's funny. It does feel... It's such a complicated, I think, like, position, because it does feel very lonely a lot of the time. And I do feel very alone, whether it's kind of like, I'm responsible and I'm, like, the one like, at the end of the day, I'm like, well, it's just me. But it can be very isolating. And it's a funny dichotomy because you're often surrounded. Like, I love going to set.
Yeah.
And I am constantly engaging with people.
Yes.
And surrounded by people. But there's
no more professional team sport than making a movie.
Yeah.
Like, my God.
100%. Yeah. And so it is an interesting thing where, like, you'll spend days and weeks, even when you're surrounded by hundreds of, crew, cast, people on set, you go home and like somehow it still can feel very isolating and lonely. It's a weird dichotomy, but it's, you know, it's also weirdly something I'm kind of comfortable with. I am okay, like kind of feeling tethered and untethered at the same time. I think you almost have to be too. I think when you're directing, you need to be plugged into everyone. But then a part of your brain does need to exist in its own space so that you can be constantly sort of seeing the world and navigating things. So it might be, compartmentalizing might be part of it as well. But yeah.
Well, then we have the other two characters feel like, you know, the sort of truer complements to one another in Veda and Lore and Mikkel. So obviously My Girl came first chronologically. Did you watch that in real time when you were growing up? Was that something that you watched when it came out?
Yeah, My Girl, I don't know if I watched it right when I watched that so young, and I watched it. That was one of the movies I had, and I watched it home over and over and over. That one continued to even be more relevant because I lost my best friend in 7th grade.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was you know, like the relationship they had, again, this very like sweet platonic best friend love. Yeah. My friend Mac growing up was the most important person to me. You know, frankly still is, but so that movie continued to be relevant, but like I watched it. I was around the same age, more or less, and so I felt seen in so many ways. There's probably not enough time, but like the movie opens with, she's a hypochondriac. She's a little hypochondriac. She's neurotic. She thinks she's going to die all the time. I went, that's me. I do that.
I was born jaundiced. Once I sat on a toilet seat at a truck stop and caught hemorrhoids. And I've learned to live with this chicken bone that's been lodged in my throat for the past 3 years. So I knew Dad would be devastated when he learned of my latest affliction.
I mean, I drove my mom nuts with like, I need to go to the doctor. Something's wrong with me. I made a doctor's appointment for Friday. I think something's going on. I still have that in me, but I was such a weird little hypochondriac. And I was very fascinated. I mean, Veda's character obviously is obsessed with death because her father runs, you know, the funeral home. But I was oddly obsessed with, even before losing Mac, I was obsessed with death and this idea of like, you know, being sick and all this stuff. And so watching her, feel those feelings and be scared but fascinated and all of these things also made me feel seen. She also just talked in it, like she wanted to be an adult, but she didn't quite know how to do it. She felt these very big things. The way she spoke felt more authentic. Like, I was watching Disney movies and things that felt very polished and curated and filtered, and then you see Veda and you go, oh, that's a real kid. Oh, that finally feels like me, and that's how I talk, and that's, you know.
How are you going to get the money to pay for this old house if you're not working?
Well, I'm going to teach creative writing this summer, so I'm doing some work.
How much does it cost?
$35?
What do you get for that?
Me, 2 hours a week, talking about poetry. Is this an interrogation, Veda?
No. Well, I guess I'll go home and finish off War and Peace.
It's summer. You're kids. Go play.
It was messy and like she looked more like me. So there's just, and she was, you know, she's a tomboy and she liked to antagonize and very much a tomboy, very much didn't feel like, I know at the end of the movie she has, you know, her friends, you see the girls she rides off with on the bikes, but up until then, like, I was the only one, like my best friend was Mac and it was me and him, and it was very, I'd say like it was different than a lot of my other friends who, you know, girls hung out with girls and boys hung out with boys and everything felt binary. And I went, well, no, this is my best friend. And it was a very sweet thing. So it was, it made me feel just like I was okay and not weird.
That's when you know that it's really kind of doing it right when you watch a movie about kids or teens and it pings in you that like nostalgic sense of that incredibly tight, impermeable bubble, that little microcosm that existed around like you and your friends or you and your one particular friend, where you're like, no, that was what it was to just have that language with them. That was what it was for the world to feel so small as like it only belonged to us, but it could feel that way because we knew it was so big that we could sort of escape into it being tiny together. Like, and that's such like the ache of watching My Girl. Like, you know how it ends and you start watching it again, you're like, I know what's gonna happen. So just like, I feel like it tumult in my chest, like a beautiful tumult in my chest the entire time. And I that was like, it immediately keyed in when I was watching You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, that sense of like, I just believed that these girls in their like Tony suburb, like the cataclysmic nature of all the things that they were going through. And that's just such the beauty of the teen movie experience, is putting everything that by comparison to an adult concern could feel inconsequential, but just making it epic and making it the entire world. And that's just such a wonderful thing to be able to return to through movies for the rest of our lives, even as we get older and the world does become bigger to us.
Oh, yeah. I think, like, that's why I've always been drawn to a lot of my favorite movies are stories about adolescence. And, like, I mean, you put it so poetically, like, perfectly, and it's so poetic, but, like, kids are like raw nerves, right?
Yeah.
And like as a kid, you don't have, like, I call it the adult filter. You don't have that filter quite yet.
Yeah.
And I think like adults form these coping mechanisms, and then we make movies about adults where like emotions are like tempered and we need to control, and kids are less filtered in a really beautiful way. And like, yeah, they feel everything. Like something that feels inconsequential to us as an adult looking back is like, no, that meant everything. And like, yeah, maybe it's the first time you're feeling it, so everything is going to feel heightened. But like, it's like, I think revisiting that and reminding ourselves, like, we all go through that, and it's not inconsequential, because feelings aren't facts, but feelings are so real, and they inform so much of who we are. And I think like leaning into emotion, like that's also, it was important in Bat Mitzvah and the characters of Stacy and Lydia, but like leaning into like being messy and emotional and like, it's okay. And actually let's lean in and not turn that stuff off. Let's actually like move through it. You know, and because I don't think it's just contained to like coming of age movies. They're not just about 13-year-olds or middle school or high school, college even. I think we come of age over and over and over. And
absolutely,
it's what's beautiful. Yeah, like that's why this genre is so applicable. Like I still watch My Girl, and it's still like, it's nostalgic, but it's also still such a good reminder of like, you know, everything we need to be reminded of.
Well, yeah, and the arc with like her dad, you know, Dan Aykroyd in that, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and like him moving on from his wife who's passed into this new relationship. Like, you're right, like to give it underscores the emotional weight, I feel like, of what our young protagonists are going through when they have that foil of these older folks whose lives, like when you kind of set them alongside each other, it's like, we're going through this just as much chaos, but it's just a different kind of chaos. And I guess this doesn't end, but the hope is that when we go through these bouts of chaos, that we can find something beautiful regardless of how it fits in our context of our age. But like, yeah, like that, it emphasizes the young story to have like the well built out, like those MVP supporting adults in the coming of age film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly it. I think like 13 years old. Yeah, that's probably like a pretty heightened first time. You're going through some real big stuff, but having the adult characters, it is why it's so important. I think like it's something obviously for adults to relate to, but it's also like, yeah, we're going to continue to go through a lot of bullshit. Life is going to be chaotic. Like adolescence.
Like just like, hey, it gets better, but the bullshit doesn't end. But like, we get to be who we want to be through the bullshit.
And we're going to keep making mistakes. It's like, you know, like adolescence, I was like talking about this and I go, adolescence is like this big fun roller coaster, right? Fast, exciting. There's highs, there's lows. Like most of the time it's fun and it's a rush, but then sometimes like your stomach drops, you're going to like throw up or die.
Yeah.
And that's just being 13. But like also like that's just being a human being. And I think if you don't embrace, you know, this is the cheesy the thing we all hear, but like, you know, without darkness, there's no light. And without, you know, the lows there, you can't feel as high. But I think it's such an impactful reminder of like, the ride never ends. like who's in that buggy with you, who's on the ride with you. And again, it goes back to this, like, the idea of friendship and chosen family and community and you know, family, but
and if you're fortunate enough to be queer, you have a whole other beautiful perspective on life.
Exactly. And that's what Crush touched. Yeah, I mean, the chosen family is such a it's funny, there's even like a similarity, like, you know, in Judaism, like I have kind of like a chosen family, a lot of my queer family, and it's funny, as an adult, like, I still have my mom and my sisters, but I have a Jewish community that, like, I now belong to, and I'm like, what a beautiful thing that we can connect and relate to all these people. And yeah, those are the people that are gonna, like, help me when I'm on this roller coaster that is in nightmare sometimes. And, you know, they can, like, scream with joy, and they can, you know, scream with fear. But, like, yeah, if you're on the ride alone, it's a lot harder.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll get to Sammi's last feeling scene pick, the young lead from Celine Sciamma's Tomboy. Then you'll have one quick thing about the latest way that you can watch my movie, Give Me an A, that came out in June.
The Greatest Generation, Maximum Fun's irreverent, potty-mouthed Star Trek podcast is a big deal.
How big? It's the only Star Trek podcast big enough to have our very own live show tour. And we're inviting all Star Trek fan Max Funsters everywhere.
We're calling it the Share Your Embarrassment Tour. And this year we're going to celebrate and roast Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
We're going to go to a bunch of cities. And GreatestGenTour.com has all the info.
That's GreatestGenTour.com for dates and ticketing info for the Share Your Embarrassment Tour.
Share your embarrassment and grow stronger from the sharing.
Hi, I'm Travis McElroy.
And I'm Teresa McElroy.
And we're the host of Schmanners.
We don't believe that etiquette should be used to judge other people.
No, on Schmanners, we see etiquette as a way to navigate social situations with confidence.
So if that sounds like something you're into,
join us every Friday on Maximum Fun or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Feeling Seen. I'm talking to director Sammi Cohen, whose latest film is the Netflix feature You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. Sammi has made films about young people, and they are feeling seen by the young characters in a few different films, the last of which we'll get to in just a second here. I feel like one of the great scams of being a young person is when any adult tries to tell you that you'll, like, grow out a certain kind of drama.
Yep.
I think we learn how to handle situations and process our feelings and cope. I think we develop coping mechanisms in life. But as a 38-year-old,
yeah.
The dramas of, like, office politics, of on-set dynamics, like the drama of managing adults with large egos or bullies is absolutely a one-to-one with what you experience when you're an adolescent. And the fiction that anybody really leaves that stuff behind is such a stupid lie. It's so wrong.
Mm-hmm. A part of me just goes, yeah, because as adults, I think a lot of us are just in denial. And we, like, it's part of what I was touching on earlier. Like, we want to just suppress the big feelings.
Yes.
We want to just kind of put our blinders on. And it's this survival mechanism. It's a coping mechanism that I think we adopt and that we, like, hold on to because it does feel like it helps us survive. But what I think this generation is actually teaching us, like, I learn more from these kids, I think, than they learn from me. Because if you listen and you pay attention, I think they're going like, no, we need to move through the feelings and we need to learn how to, like, manage this, because it's not going to go away.
Right,
like,
yeah.
These things are not going to go away, and we can't be in denial anymore. Like, the world is a different place, and I think, like, the addition, like, social media, just the state of our, you know, our world.
Everything.
I'll leave it at that. Like, truly everything. I think kids are actually going like, no, we can't be in denial anymore because we've hit the breaking point. And that's what, like now more than ever, like I think it's important to give, voice to the younger generation on screen, in our narrative world. But I think we just need to listen to kids who are like, we gotta fucking figure this out.
The young people, like, they've got a long way to go for themselves in their personal journeys too, but like I've met like a group of like college kids lately, and like to just be in consistent communication with like 21-year-olds and the sort of casualness with which because like I like, talk about like queer stuff and queer life, and the way that I will find myself sort of in their sort of experience over explaining me and my identity and how I am, when there is such a easy and casual like awareness and acceptance already of who I am and my experience, that like I'll find myself talking and they fucking already bought in 6 monologues ago. And I'm just like, oh, like, no, but you guys are just like, good. Like, this is okay. I'll be done. Let me listen. Let me listen.
I experience a similar thing where we feel, I think like there is a definite shift, and I see that in working with, younger actors. Yeah. My youngest sister works, she's a social worker, and she works in elementary, middle schools. Oh, wow. And it's like this beautiful thing that, and she, again, we're in California, we're more specifically in LA. So like it is a more liberal part of the country, the world, but it is very eye-opening for me because I will find myself over-explaining. Yes. And I'm still so nervous to talk about it. There's so much, it feels so heavy to me. But kids talk about queerness, identity, sexuality in such a nonchalant way where like it's almost so glossed over. It was kind of like when I came out, everyone was like, yeah, we know.
I got in this whole long explanation to one of these college students about like my pan-romantic gray sexuality, and just like she just like listened, and she just like squinted her eyes and kind of was like nodding approvingly, and her whole response was, "That's kind of a sleigh though." And I was like, "You're right."
Oh, that's it.
That's it. That's it. Like, end of story.
I love that.
I agree with you. Yeah. It's kind of a sleigh, though.
It gives me hope, I think. And it's funny, like in Bat Mitzvah, I didn't know this before doing the movie, but I'm non-binary, identify as non-binary, and even within Judaism, everything's still so binary and gendered. The Bat Mitzvah, the Bar Mitzvah. Right. I was like, wait. What happens if you don't identify as male or female? I learned from talking to rabbis and kids, more coastally, Toronto, New York, California specifically. But I learned that they now do B mitzvahs or b'nai mitzvahs for they, them. And I was like, well, that's fucking cool. We got to put that in the movie. And I didn't have that opportunity as a kid. I didn't even know about it. So the first party that the Friedmans go to is actually a b'nai mitzvah. But here's the catch: is like, so part of my goal as a filmmaker is to normalize the queer experience. Yes. And I think Crush, like, that was very much behind the whole, making of that movie from beginning to end. Yeah. But in Bat Mitzvah, it's not a queer, Stacey's not queer.
I absolutely loved the moment where it's like, so you only like boys? It's okay. Some of us are straight too. I mean, the college kids that I met, they've somehow magically all been heterosexual. And I'm like, how did you guys... Where are you guys, like the 7 people of your entire class at USC that it just is straight identifying? Like, I thought everyone was gay now. This is crazy to me.
Well, it is so fun. I know. Well, and I think like I obviously appreciate that joke in such a similar way because it feels like, okay, now everyone's out and allowed to be. And when there's not a queer person in the room, I go, wait, something's off.
Yeah, how did we end up here?
Like coming off of Crush, again, Bat Mitzvah, like Stacey's not queer and that's not like the driving force behind the movie or her story. But the B'nai Mitzvah was so important to me because it's like, it's not mentioned, it's like glossed over. Yeah. And that's kind of the point, like making it so nonchalant is exactly like, it's not called out. We're not drawing attention to it. because that's what I've learned from this generation that's coming of age right now. Like, they don't make a big deal of it. And so I'm like, oh, we're not going to make a big deal out of it because it's actually not a big deal.
Right, yeah.
And that's so much more powerful than going like, we're queer, we're here. Like, no, we're just also here.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's more concerned with the party and schmooly and like, sure, Devin happens to be non-binary. Who the hell cares? Like, that's the beauty of, and I think the power of like what we can do in just like adding these details and rounding out the world.
And so I think that perfectly brings us into, because we could not, now we go into like coming of age movie grad school with Celine Sciamma's Tomboy. It's like, all right, you've done your undergrad reading, and now we'll move on to the advanced level courses, which is a Celine Sciamma adolescence film in Tomboy. And I had been meaning to watch this for ages, but this was actually my first watch of it. And when did you find this movie, or when did this movie find you?
Yeah, it was, so I was like early 20s when I saw it. I didn't come out until I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I was very closeted for a long time. So I saw it around the time it came out, and I've never, ever, still to this day, felt so seen by a film. Wow. I've never felt, Mikkel, that was me as a kid. I might even cry because I get very emotional. Like, that was so much how I felt as a kid. When I'd go out with my mom, like running errands, I dressed, I'm kind of dressed similarly now, but I wore only boy clothes. I only wanted to wear boy clothes. I would put my hair up and hide it in a hat. I wore a hat every day, and people would, when I was out with my mom, they'd go, "Oh my God, your son's so cute." And she would sort of have a kind of adverse reaction and go, no, it's my dot. Like, and I just remember going like, I feel so good, but this feels confusing, and the world isn't necessarily understanding what this is and what I am. And just seeing, Mikkel, who in every way looks and sounds and feels like a little boy. Yeah. One, I think there was like this beautiful moment of like, oh, there's freedom for him to do that. Yeah. And
the way that the movie conveys how much kind of like casual access it affords this little kid when suddenly, like, I'm Mikhail.
Mikhail, je m'appelle Mikhail.
And the boys want to play with him, and he gets to play soccer, and he gets to do more fun stuff. He can hang out with the girls too and do that, but he also gets to have fun with the boys. And it shows you like this just quiet door openings that happens when like little boys get to be in the world.
Yep. I mean, Celine's an incredible filmmaker and so tapped into like the truth of, just like humanity. It's everything she does as a filmmaker is gentle. It's quiet. It takes its time.
Gentle.
It's so beautiful and gentle. Like, it's never forceful. And it's very quiet and slow. I think even when you look at like later movies like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, it really takes its time.
Oh yeah.
And I think that with Tomboy, everything I was watching, I was coming out of college and film school, and I was watching a bunch of like exciting, intense, like hard opinions. Yeah. That makes sense. And then watching this quiet movie unfold allowed me to sit with this feeling that was deeply inside me for so long. I think that's a lot. It's a powerful way to let a story unfold. No one knows who Mikkel is, right? Yeah. They move, and he gets to start over and choose himself how he wants to be and present and feel in the world, and who he wants to be. And I think there was a little bit of this like escapism fantasy for me going like, well, everyone knows me, and I already the secret's out for me. Yeah. There was something so like I got to live vicariously through, I think Mikkel, and go like, yeah, I want to reinvent myself too. And this is a way. And then like the scene where he cuts the bathing suit, like there's just moments that like, there were so many things that I think I did privately that I felt like a lot of shame around. I then got to see this kid cut the bathing suit so he was wearing like a boy's suit and like do all these things to validate his identity. And I went, it's just like, this is cheesy to say, but I'm like, I'm not wrong. I'm not, there's someone, this is me. Like, this is I understand exactly how this feels.
Well, and that gentleness allows it to be so matter of fact too. It's not showy how it's happening. It's like, I'm just watching this person's life. Like, I feel my own.
Yep. And it wasn't, the other thing, even as we're talking about it, the younger sister was also such an impactful part of that film.
Yes.
Because she validates Mikkel. Like, Mikkel is, there's no trauma, there's no judgment. There's curiosity, there's interest, and there's questions, but there's, it's gentle. Like, the whole movie is so gentle, and it really posits this idea of like, okay, there is space to be authentic and not be hurt or judged or, put on display. But everything was, it was very matter of fact and gentle. Like, that's why I think it's so powerful.
Well, and I think too, like you mentioned, like having this, this intimate community growing up, like with your mom and your sisters, and it seeming like you feeling very like held by that, but then also like having that experience of your mom being like, no, my little girl, it's my little girl, and then you have like in Mikkel, like Mikkel's mom loves him, loves them perhaps, and they have like a really sweet home life. Like, the parents are really good with the kids, and the siblings like are really bonded to each other, and then when she finds out that he's been presenting as Mikhail, like, there is this rejection of that, and she slaps him across the face, but it, and the insistence of like, you're gonna wear this dress now, and we're gonna go, and we're gonna tell people that you've been lying to them. And then they have that moment in the corridor where she's like, I'm not trying to punish you, but that dissonance between like the parents and the community who do love, but still even in their love can receive that sort of news, can receive that sort of information about the truth of who a person is, and not handle it super well. Like, really, that scene in the corridor is just like devastating. Then there's that embrace, and mom hugs Mikkel, and it's just very like, wow, 80,000 feelings just happened with 4 lines of dialogue in this one scene.
Yeah, I mean, like, it kind of makes my stomach drop and like every hair stand up, because it's hard. Like, there is so much love behind it. I think what that really showcases, like, as a parent, and I think I've noticed this in my own experience, like, just the generational divide. I think with parents in general, you feel this need to protect your kids.
Yeah.
And to send them out into the world and go, I want them to like have the best chance at surviving this world. And you look at a world, again, like, we've been conditioned, and society has like taught us something for so long. And so part of it just takes time. But I think like, the parent is, I love you, and I'm doing this because I love you, and I want you to be okay. And I've noticed this, I think with my mom, like, with her, like, we got my ears pierced. She would always correct people, and say, this is my daughter, not my son. I think there was just this very like real feeling of fear as a parent.
Yeah.
Going, I'm scared, and I don't want people to hurt you. And so this is going to help you. If we hide you, we're going to help you. And what a weird, ironic, also like being Jewish, like that plays into the whole.
Wow.
I think like there is a real deep-seated need to survive and protect your young at like in a very animalistic, like just fundamentally human way. And so in Tomboy, that scene, it's so tragic to me, and it breaks my fucking heart every time. It's coming. But it's also so there's a part of me that empathizes with mom and with the parents going like, oh, they just want this kid to be okay, and they don't know exactly how to navigate that. But that also made me feel seen, because I think like my mom is, and my whole family is like incredibly supportive. I'm getting top surgery next year. Like, there's a lot of things that
congratulations, fuck yeah.
Thank you. And I feel so much more comfortable with myself. And they're so supportive, but there is still always a little bit of dissonance. And there's still always a little bit of like, you know what, they're not going to understand everything completely. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I have people that do.
Yeah.
I have people that share my experience. And that's where Chosen Family and all of the films that, like these things that we escape into, but also that are mirrors and tools of empowerment. Like, I think, like that's really become like a part of, I think, like what I want to do as a filmmaker and a person, like film aside.
Well, you happen to have this skill and this avenue to where you as a person can be translated into you as art that, you know, in the populist media that it is, can reach a lot of people.
It's true. And that's why I love that we get to do what we do. I sort of am realizing I'm really drawn to normalizing experiences that feel more specific, whether it's being Jewish or being queer. It's just like talking about it in a way that goes like, this isn't a big deal. It just is what it is. And like, just like starting to normalize these things that divide us, and that we have like, you know, there's been a lot of tension and fear. And I think it's just a matter of going like, we're all the same and we can all relate in some way. And let's normalize this stuff, because all we have is each other.
That's like, I can't go out on something better than that. So I just thank you so much for your time and talking to me about your movies and these movies and how all those things form the melting pot that is you, and taking the time with me and being so generous to discuss them.
This has been so lovely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you again to Sammi Cohen. Their first film, Crush, the episode that we have tied to that huge feeling scene hit, is out there on Hulu for you to enjoy. And You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah debuted last weekend on Netflix and has set a really fun record. It is now Adam Sandler's best reviewed film on Rotten Tomatoes ever? Is that true? Like, Uncut Gems doesn't have as good a rating? I had to fact check that, you guys, because I don't doubt what the information that producer Marissa provides, but it was like, wait a minute, Uncut Gems was like a huge deal. Indie Spirit Awards, the critical reascent of Adam Sandler, like, you know, he was serious in that one movie, Punch Drunk Love, and everybody was like, he's an actor. Well, he's always been an actor. He's a good actor. But like, wow, You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. A 96 standing so far on Rotten Tomatoes. In the storied and long career of Adam Sandler, his most critically revered film to date. Congratulations to the Sandler family, Sonny and Adam both, and to Idina Menzel and Adam Sandler. Let's keep the Adam and Idina marriage cinematic universe going. I want to see this couple in more things. We've had them in Uncut Gems. Now we have them in Bat Mitzvah. Let's put them in a vacation movie next, because I want to see where that goes. What a delight. Thank you again also to Sammi Cohen, who, as I was telling producer Marissa the other day, perhaps one of my favorite working directors at all now. What a talent. And I cannot wait for the next tale of love and heartbreak, and whatever it is that they decide to make. But now let's get to that one last quick thing before we go. And it is a quick thing. And that is that you can watch my movie, Give Me an A, which is an anthology film by 17 female directors, writers and directors. And every short is mostly body horror, but also some body comedy in there, that is a reaction to the destruction of Roe versus Wade as settled precedent in the United States. Everyone who worked on it did a great job. We did a great job. It's really good. If I was fully prepared to work on an anthology and be like, it's fine. But because the anthology is like, your mileage may vary, man. It's a lot to gamble on, a lot of moving parts to gamble on, to be like, this whole thing's good. Like, the whole thing is good. I'm impressed by us. I'm proud of us. And it is on Tubi, the ultimate streaming service, because Tubi doesn't require a login and it doesn't require a subscription or any of your money. You can just go to Tubi's website and just watch. You just watch stuff. That to me makes it the elite streaming service, because it's not asking for any of your credit card information. You just click play and watch stuff. Are there commercials? Yes, grow up, get over it. You had them when you were a kid, you can have them again now. So go watch Tubi for the price of nothing additional to you. You can see Give Me an A. And that is our show, leading you right off into going to watch Give Me an A right now. You can follow us on Twitter at FeelingSeenPod, or send us an email at feelingseen@MaximumFun.org. If you want to follow me, I'm JorCrew on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. This show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun, a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.